Hi, everybody. Welcome to our conversation today with Assembly members Chris Rogers and Damon Connolly. We're going to be talking about Prop 50, let you know all of the details. And before we do that, we'll do a quick round of introductions of who is here on the panel. I'm Leslie Banta. I am the president of the Mendocino College Federation of Teachers, and I serve on the FACCC Board of Governors. Michelle, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hello, my name is Michelle Haggerty. I'm the president of the faculty union at College of the Redwoods. I teach psychology here also, and I'm also on the FACCC board and the legislative committee through FACCC.
Okay, and Siobhan.
Hi, my name is Siobhan McGregor-Gordon. I teach English to multilingual students at Santa Rosa Junior College. I am an All Faculty Association council member, and I represent SRJC faculty on the FACCC Board of Governors.
Thanks. And Assemblymember Rogers.
Good afternoon, everybody. Chris Rogers. I'm the Assembly member for the 2nd Assembly District. So I go from halfway through Santa Rosa all the way north to the Oregon border. That's Sonoma, Mendocino, Humboldt, Del Norte, and Trinity counties.
Thank you. And Assemblymember Connolly.
Hey, everyone. Assemblymember Damon Connolly. I represent Assembly District 12, which goes from Highway 12 in Santa Rosa south to the Golden Gate Bridge.
Thank you. And Assemblymember Connolly is running for Senate, Mike McGuire's seat in the upcoming elections.
Excited about it and really appreciate the support of California Federation of Teachers and look forward to getting to know you all better and working together.
Thank you. So thanks to everybody for joining us, and thank you to FACCC for providing the webinar access for us. FACCC has not taken a position on Prop 50 and is facilitating this meeting just to help keep our members informed. So Assemblymember Rogers, our first question might seem like an obvious one, but it is important. What is Prop 50?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say this is not an issue that I ever thought that I was going to be dealing with as an Assembly member. But as many folks know, since January, since the Trump administration has come into office, we have just seen a repeated attack on Californians with no accountability whatsoever. And we can get into that. As we look towards the midterm elections, it's really difficult for the Trump administration to run on the things that they have accomplished and the things that they have done. And Damon and I have talked about this before. The largest tax cut in the history of the United States for billionaires, while simultaneously having the largest cut in Medicaid and for healthcare for, I think the estimate's going to be about 15 million people across the country that'll lose their health insurance. You can't run a campaign on that. You can't run for re-election on that. You will lose in a fair election. So rather than doing things that benefit the public, the average person, the president instead has been calling around to different states to disenfranchise voters in those states and to make sure that there is no accountability come 2028 through 2026. For example, we have talked a lot about Texas, where the president called and said to Greg Abbott, I need you to find me 5 seats. He has called Missouri. He has called North Carolina. North Carolina actually kicked this off a year ago and flipped 3 seats relatively quietly. And that's the difference in Congress right now. So what California decided to do is the legislature is putting on the ballot for you all to decide, do you want to fight fire with fire? Do you want to take the 5 seats that Texas just took away from Democrats, add them in California? That does mean taking away 5 Republican seats in the state, but to keep balance with what we're seeing at the national level. What Prop 50 does not do, and I want to make sure we're very clear, it does not impact whatsoever the state assembly or state senate districts. This is only for congressional seats. And what it doesn't do is it doesn't eliminate the independent voter redistricting that California has put in place. What it does is it puts 2 maps side by side, and it says to California's voters, which map do you prefer? The map that allows us to hold the president accountable, or this new map or this existing map wherein which the independent voters had redistricting commission had put it in place in the last census 6 years ago. So I'll stop there. Happy to answer additional questions. But that really what it is it's a question of accountability. It's a question of checks and balances. And frankly, the number one question I've gotten as I've done town halls throughout my district since January is, what are you going to do to protect Californians? And this is a good opportunity for us to flip that around and say, we are providing an opportunity. It is now up to you. It is up to voters in California to decide, do you want to safeguard democracy and do you want to step up for your community?
Thank you. This was something that you brought up something that I didn't realize, was that our state assembly districts would stay the same and that it would only change the national. So I think that's a really important point for folks to have in conversations when we're talking about that. Assemblymember Connolly, would you like to add to this question?
Yeah, I would, and that's an important point you just made, Leslie. And I think Chris covered it, but the way I would look at it too is when Trump was elected last year, since that time, we have all been asking, and certainly I have been asked, Chris has been asked, Democrats and leaders, particularly who are Democrats, have been asked, what are you doing to stop this slide toward authoritarianism? It's often not put that politely, I might add, for good reason, because of the stakes at issue. Chris talked about the unprecedented cuts to Medicaid and what that's going to do to decimate our healthcare system. The cut, the actual proposed elimination of the Department of Education and education cuts that are coming our way. Who amongst us would have thought military personnel in our streets right now, masked agents, virtually kidnapping people at this point? The answer is we can pass Proposition 50. It literally is the way we can now save our democracy. Chris outlined what it is and isn't. What it is a way to combat explicit actions by Trump and Texas to rig the midterm elections, because we know we have to take back the House. And as your legislators, we're doing everything we can, but that is a thing that we absolutely need to do, in addition to continuing to sue the Trump administration and many of the other actions that we are doing. So California is stepping up through our voters. That's the other difference, is that voters will get to decide on new maps as a result of Proposition 50 that will shift the balance and maintain the balance by enabling us to get 5 additional seats. It's not just a way to protect California values. It is really California taking a leadership role on really what is a national issue and code red situation right now.
Yeah, thank you. I think that is an important difference. Texas and California approached it a very different way. So the question that we had in the chat is this the only time we're going to vote on this, or will it be ongoing? And I think that's what Assemblymember Rogers was going to talk about as being.
Yeah, and I'm happy to take the lead, and it looks like Chris is coming back. Yes, this is a one-time thing. So it is temporary in duration. We will actually have an ordinary census and redistricting process through the Independent Redistricting Commission, which is not going away after 2030. So as of the 2032 elections, as happens every 10 years, the Independent Commission will actually draw new congressional maps. And again, this is only for congressional districts, no state legislative jurisdiction. So it's temporary, it's transparent. As Chris, I'm sure, will note, the language of Prop 50 itself reinforces California's belief that there should actually be a nationwide push toward independent redistricting commissions. That's expressly called for in what we will be voting on.
Yeah. Go ahead, Assemblymember Rogers.
Yeah, and I apologize. I think I lost internet for a second there, but that was exactly the point that I was going to make, is that every Democrat reiterated that we believe that partisan gerrymandering is bad for democracy. But we also believe that getting to a point where there are no checks and balances by allowing everybody else to game the system is also bad for democracy. So we coupled Prop 50 with a call for a national reform to make sure that everybody eliminates partisan gerrymandering, that you have a level playing field across 50 states, and that you reaffirm that people should choose their own voters, not have choose their own politicians, not have politicians choose their own voters. The reality is California is the only one that does that. And there was a measure in Congress in 2022 to have independent redistricting be the law of the land in all 50 states. Every Democrat voted for it. Every Republican voted against it. We had a bill in the state legislature this year to do independent redistricting for one of our counties in Southern California. Every Democrat voted for it. Every Republican voted against it. And so I agree with folks when they say that this is bad, that it's a race to the bottom. It's difficult for us to vote for it. Completely agreed. But what's even worse is allowing the system to get so gamed against us that there is no ability to come back.
Thank you. And we've talked a little bit about why Prop 50 matters already. Some people are questioning the cost of the ballot measure, and could we use that money for other needs that we have in the state, and would that better serve us? Assemblymember Connolly, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, no, you always have to be mindful of cost, but in this case, the benefits drastically outweigh the cost. So the cost is estimated to be somewhere in the $200 million range for the special election statewide on November 4th. But counterbalance that to what is the price of our democracy, number one. But number two is look at what's at stake right now. We touched on a little bit in the first answer is tens of billions of dollars are at stake in critical programs, our rural healthcare systems, our education systems. Who amongst us thinks that wildfire prevention money from the federal government should be conditioned on whether we have voter ID? It's just random, bullshit, to be honest, that has been foisted upon us right now. So partly we're taking a number of different strategies. One is we're suing. One of the first things Chris and I did as members of the budget committee is to support funding to AG Rob Banta to enable him to push back on the Trump administration, and we're winning most of those lawsuits. We're making sure that we can do everything we can to take our fate in our own hands, if you will. Voters are stepping up with things like the climate bond, right? The cap and invest program. But the fact of the matter is this all comes down to, in a fair way and not a rigged way, winning back the House of Representatives in the midterms coming up. We've got to do it. Trump knows it. He knows he's going to lose unless he tries to take these fraudulent acts with all too compliant folks like the governor of Texas. So California's stepping up, and we're doing it not just to protect our own residents, but really this nation.
Assemblymember Rogers, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, the only thing that I'll add is that this election is going to cost California less than what Trump is spending on building a new gaudy ballroom at the White House. And when you really put it into perspective around what our priorities are, $200 million to be able to preserve and protect democracy versus $800 billion for Medi-Cal in the state of California. Yes, there are other things that I'd rather be spending that money on, but given that we've lost more than $200 million in BRIC grants for wildfire projects, or that we've lost more than $200 million for health incentives, coverage for folks for healthcare, these are all things that I wish we weren't having to fight on. And as they say, you put your dollars where your priorities are and where your values are. I'd much rather be spending that money on something else. But California has to be active in shielding our democracy. And we're frankly the only state that can counterbalance states like Texas. So if not us, then who?
So one of the questions I've been seeing a lot, like on social media, my friends, is around what does it mean for us, like not the state, but us like the district, right? And you already talked about it's only changing the congressional district, not the assembly district. But, you know, representation, practical implications, what happens when counties are divided? So a friend of mine posted, you know, they're dividing our county, we'll have less of a voice, and that we should fight back against that. So, you know, Assemblymember Rogers, what do you think about that? What does that mean for us who are in your district?
Yeah, I actually think that it's a pretty interesting question for me to be able to answer. For context, as I said at the beginning, I have the third largest assembly district in the state of California. I have 3 blue counties and 2 state of Jefferson counties. And I always tell people the only thing that they all agree on is that Sacramento doesn't care about them whatsoever. And I keep seeing this context from folks about, oh my gosh, San Rafael is going to be connected to rural parts of Northern California. And that's true. In the new district, that is true. But I also remind people, my assembly district is about 2/3 the size of a congressional district. And I have Santa Rosa and Weaverville. I have Healdsburg and Crescent City. That in these more rural areas of our state, you do have urban and rural that are put together. And I understand the fear from folks that they don't see their representatives, particularly in rural areas, as much as they want, or see their voices reflected in Sacramento. That's an issue that's across the board in politics. And it's one that I've been trying really hard in my first year to try to counterbalance. We've been doing town halls in places that typically don't see their representatives, like Casper, for instance. And that's something that we need to do outside of the scope of redistricting. But the idea that we shouldn't do redistricting just because you're going to have urban and rural areas together, we already have it. And in terms of the dividing communities, as I mentioned, Santa Rosa right now is divided in the state assembly. It's cut in half. It's divided in Congress. It has 2 different Congress members. And I've always looked at it from a perspective of, I have 2 people that care about my community. When I was a mayor for the city, I had 2 congressmen, I had 2 assembly members, I had a senator, all of whom that I could call and contact, because what this job is really about is building relationships and partnerships. And tell people all the time, we get 1 assembly member for 5 counties, you get 27 for LA. So if you come from LA, you actually have a higher chance of passing legislation to get to that 41 vote threshold, because you're more than halfway there with people who represent the community with you. So I actually have never had any problem with having some division within our community. To me, that means partnership, and that means another person that can step up and help us.
Thank you. Assemblymember Connolly, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think that was well said, but I'll add another piece because I think it was great that I believe it was your members who raised this question. And that is, how would this impact representation of minority voters and voters of color? Would it result in disenfranchisement? Interestingly, impartial analyses are showing that's another factor in favor of what we're proposing. Whereas Texas, frankly, by design, their gerrymander will actually disenfranchise minority voters. California, as proposed, and again, as will be decided by the voters, does the opposite. It actually enhances minority representation if you look statewide. And that was actually one of the explicit criteria on how these districts came about. Otherwise, I think Chris handled it well. I'd be curious, and maybe someone dropped something in the chat, if participants want to know a little bit more specifics on the districts. There actually, interestingly, would be a relatively newly drawn district centered on Santa Rosa that would go north. The Huffman district would kind of cover a lot of the area it does now, but then it would go across over the length of our border with Oregon. So it would take in Siskiyou, Shasta, Modoc. So you do have kind of the situation where Reading and Marin, so to speak, would be represented by the same person. That having been said, Congressman Huffman, as Chris noted, represents a lot of rural areas right now as well.
And so in the chat, somebody said, can you share what areas tend to be in support and which are leaning against this change? Do we have any polls? Do we know?
We do. I can start that off. I think we're starting off in a strong position, but the key is, and that's why these kind of conversations are so important, is people want to know more. I think the general sentiment is people like our independent redistricting. It is good for democracy, as Chris noted. But when you explain why we're doing this and why it's so important, people get it. And people are signaling they're going to vote yes. So right now, it's polling in the 50s by all accounts. There's different numbers being thrown around. But this is going to be the most expensive election in state history, if not one of the most expensive in national history, at least for a ballot measure. You're seeing tens of millions of dollars in misleading ads already from the no side. We have to be mindful of that. This is going to be a turnout election. So the areas in favor of it will tend to be Democratic voters and independent voters inclined to agree with this point of view, and opposed will be Republicans. So this is going to be a campaign where in cities and towns of all sizes, it's going to be neighbors talking to neighbors. Union halls, on the doorstep, right? Phone calls, postcards, driving turnout, whether that's the smallest areas of Chris's district or the area I hope to represent, or LA. All votes are going to count, and we need to turn out as many votes as we can, and that's going to be to make sure that people have accurate information and understand what's at stake here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say this is likely to be the most partisan ballot measure that I'm ever going to be a part of. And when you look at the polling, that's exactly what it breaks down. The polling shows that Republicans, especially in deep red areas, do not like this. They don't like the idea of potentially losing their voice and having fewer Republicans elected in Congress. And I get it, I would too. They don't look at it from a national perspective and say, Republicans control all of Congress, they control the White House, they control the Supreme Court, therefore I'm represented. They look at what they have on the local level. Conversely, Democrats and independents start off being skeptical because the support for independent redistricting is higher amongst Democrats and independents than it is amongst Republicans to begin with. And as you educate voters on why we're doing this, and as you talk about the national implications that you are systematically being disenfranchised at the federal level, not because of what's happening on the ground in California, but because of what's happening in other states and losing that ability to hold folks accountable, then it becomes very partisan. And it kind of breaks down into you either like what Trump is doing and you want to defend his ability to do that, you're going to vote no, or you don't like what Trump is doing, you understand the impact on your local community, and you see this as a necessary evil. And again, nobody likes this. Nobody likes this. But it's a question of, do you see it as a necessary evil to protect your community and protect democracy? And then people tend to skew into the yes on that front. Frankly, I think that if there was not built into the measure the reversion back to the independent redistricting and the call for independent redistricting, I think that this would have no shot whatsoever. But I think given the context of where we find ourselves in history and just this moment of seeing fascism grow across the country, I'm cautiously optimistic that this is going to be a counterbalance.
Yeah, and Chris, to follow up, like on the national level, what happens if all the states follow suit? Like all the states follow suit. Missouri's doing it, right? Illinois.
Leslie, this was my biggest concern was, would this actually be a race to the bottom? Would we see other states do it? And I really struggled with that personally. And what it finally came down to for me was asking myself, if California didn't do it, would the others stop? And the answer is no. We've seen North Carolina already did it. We've seen Texas has already done it. We've seen Missouri already do it. I was not willing to take a chance that if California took the high road, that other people would as well. And Damon's heard me say this before. My entire life, I've been told that Democrats needed to keep the high road, that was part of our brand. And what have we gotten as a result of that? Roe's been overturned. Worker protections are gone. Environmental protection is gone. While we take the high road, our voters suffer. In California in particular, which gives $80 billion more to the federal government than we get back, are subsidizing red states, taking away our rights and fighting us at the national level. So I was not willing to gamble the future of democracy on other states, especially red states, doing the right thing and having California sit on the sidelines.
Assemblymember Connolly, would you like to add to that?
I would just say Steve Crossman just hit it on the head in the chat. States with the Republican majority legislature will never go for nonpartisan redistricting until we make gerrymandering ineffective nationwide as a partisan tool. We have to do this temporarily to make gerrymandering ineffective as a tool for the fascist Republican Party. We cannot let fascists cheat while we play by the rules. Again, this was not a fight we wanted. But it's a fight we are going to take on, and we have to win this fight. So get on Steve to sum that up, and I thought Chris kind of accurately summed it up as well.
And I do want to highlight for Steve, because I agree with you, and I don't want to ever miss an opportunity to say this, but if this is successful, if we are allowed to do this, voters let us do this, we end up taking Congress and we have accountability, Democrats also need to be held accountable for doing institutional reform. And I think this is one of the criticisms I have of the party, is we spend a lot of time trying to amass power and then never actually wield it. Republicans have had no problem when they get in the majority wielding that power to do things that they know are unpopular with most of us, but it's their base. We need to actually look at it from an institutional reform once we get in there and say, all right, now is the time where we need to pass this so that everybody else has to do it. Now we do have to strengthen the institutions of democracy. That has to be a national effort, because without it, democracy won't be saved just by one election. It'll be an opportunity through one election to save democracy. And so I don't want to miss a chance for us to talk about that as well. I think that we've actually done a very poor job of that as Democrats when we get in control, is to make sure that we strengthen those institutions as well.
And to be clear, a necessary conversation, there will be time for that, but we need to accomplish this immediate objective to help save democracy.
So Assemblymember Rogers, so the power is in the hands of the voters, right? That's who gets to decide in California. So leading up to the special election, what can we do? I know Assemblymember Connolly mentioned a few things, but especially just in our region, what kind of things can we do to get this word out?
Yeah, I think that one is, you all know this from your previous political work, you were trusted advisors for a number of people within your community. Everybody that is involved in this probably has 3 or 4, maybe 10 people that they talk to about what's going on in the world. And I think that it's worthy of having a conversation with folks about what your perspective is on this and about how you see the response from some of these criticisms that you're going to hear through ads. Damon mentioned it, there's going to be about $250 million in ads for the No campaign, is what we've been told to expect. And that's a lot of the airtime on TV, on radio. The Yes campaign will be doing the same. But what I think ends up happening when folks have a lot of messaging and a lot of money being spent is they go back and they talk to their trusted sources. That means their union, that means their neighborhood leaders, that means their friends and their family. So the role that you play is not just in your own circle helping to convince people, but also then helping to break out from that, go door to door, do phone banking, your traditional modes of communications and campaigns that has that face-to-face feel. and is able to answer questions for folks that is outside of 120 character tweets, right? And we've gotten so used to my generation is sometimes called the slacktivist generation, that our idea of activism is to just post about it on Facebook. Those algorithms mean we're posting the same people over and over again. Get out, knock on a door, make a phone call, have a real engagement with a human being about why this is important. And I think that goes a long way for folks.
And so, Assemblymember Connolly, for folks who do want to get out and do that, I know in Ukiah we have, actually in Mendocino County, the Inland Democratic Party is doing a
Yes.
postcard campaign and going door to door, and they're doing phone banking. But I'm sure that our other places have more of that. How can people get hooked up to do those kinds of things?
Yeah, and please feel free to reach out to either me and or Chris as well. We've committed to providing folks with the resources or a toolkit, if you will, if you're interested. But absolutely, Leslie, local parties, trusted sources like teachers, labor. It's going to be all hands on deck. This is really going to come down to people talking to people, reaching out to your neighbors, family members. I had a great conversation last night with some folks who I know who kind of were worried, like, what can we do? And when we talked about it, they were like, oh yeah, I can talk to 10 people, they can talk to 10 people, and so on. Again, every vote matters here, no matter where you live. And that's what we mean by kind of a turnout election, including our most rural counties up north as well. It's going to be important for folks to get out and really work to bring this across the finish line. Let us know how we can be of assistance. We're a resource here for you. I recently wrote, and some of you may have seen it because we kind of blasted it out, an op-ed in my local paper here on why it's important and what we need to do, and happy to share that with anyone as well.
Nice, thank you. I think we already shared it on our union's Facebook page, so that's
Perfect.
there if somebody would like to see that. I know that both of you have been out and about throughout the region, lots of travel, using your voices, and sometimes we forget about the power of our voice, right? And this idea of sharing, 5 people 10 people getting people to come with you to town halls and that sort of thing. I know Assemblymember Rogers, you had a coffee thing at Black Oak a while back. Do we have more of that planned throughout the region?
Yeah, so we did coffee at Black Oak last week. We also did a town hall in Willits. Next week, we have a town hall that's in Fort Bragg. So we are making our way around. I think that we then have Ferndale and Fortuna, and we're trying to make sure that we hit all of the stops that we can. If folks want to, and I'll just make this offer, if anybody wants to host your own coffee and invite your own friends and have us come by and talk about the measure, I'm happy to do that as well.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, same. I've got one coming up in Eureka Saturday afternoon. I'm going to be kicking off a canvas in Lakeport Sunday morning. A lot of stuff going on in Marin and Sonoma as well. So kind of just systematically, fostering all those efforts.
So lots of things where we could get the word out. We could bring a friend and have them share too. Is there anything else either of you would like to add to our conversation today?
I think we covered a lot of ground. Just checking the chat here to see if there's any additional anything in Del Norte. Absolutely, they have a very and that's kind of one of those more split counties. Chris referenced, but there's a very strong and active Democratic Party presence there. I did speak at their Democratic Labor Day event in Crescent City not too long ago. Not surprisingly, Prop 50 was the total topic. So again, everything we've talked about, it just needs to play out up and down this state. for the next however many weeks. It's coming right up, right? November 4th.
Yeah,
Right.
and I shared in the chat, but I'll also say we are working right now to schedule with the Democratic Party canvassing days in every single county that we represent. Del Norte, we're looking at, I think, the last week of October, but I don't think we've actually picked a specific date yet. I'll make sure that it gets publicized. But to me, the work that we do knocking on doors is not just about one election or about one issue, though this is an important one. It's also about making sure that folks know that their voice matters. And if you don't go and talk to people, then they don't feel like it matters.
Yeah, and more specific to Mendel College, even I know in Lake County, the Dems are very much putting together weekly canvases. I know there's one Sunday in Lakeport as an example.
Yeah, and I see Phil's comment, contributions for the Yes on 50 campaign. Actually, if you just Google the Yes on 50 website, that's where all of the money is being pushed through to be able to aggregate the resources. So I checked that out. If you can't find that, go ahead and reach out, but it should be just a simple Google search for you to do it. And then Leslie, the last thing that I wanted to just reiterate for folks is we're talking a lot about California doing this to be reactive to places like Texas and North Carolina and Missouri. And that all is true. But I also want to highlight for folks and make sure that it really is important the differences in how we are doing this. This is not the legislature drawing a map and then implementing it with no input from the public. We used all of the data from the Independent Redistricting Commission. We used all of the criteria, including strengthening minority representation, and it does all of that, doesn't violate any of that. Where possible, it keeps communities whole, which is one of the criteria we try to use. And at the end of the day, this is the only state in the nation that is going to face this issue where it's the public that gets to say. It's not politicians, it's not folks in DC that are dictating it. It is Californians who get to look at it and say, do I want to use my voice? Do I want to push back? And do I want to be a part of this? If you choose not to and you vote against it, that's fine. I disagree with that position, but you as voters have the right to do that because this is a democracy. And I always come back, and Damon's heard me say this before, to this very famous quote from Ben Franklin when he was leaving as they were designing the Constitution. And he said, it's a republic democracy if we choose to keep it. And that's where we're at. We're at the point where we get to choose as Californians whether we are going to keep our system, if we're going to fight for it or not. And that's different than every other state.
All right. Thank you.
And so well said. And this is on all of us right now. This is the moment. And really, I think we all just need to come together and work through this and get the job done on November 4th and get Proposition 50 passed.
So thank you both so much for showing up today and for coming to our region and showing up every day for us. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we can get this work done together.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.